So, good morning, friends. On behalf of Banking Quest, I, Tilak Gulati, extend you warm welcome. Friends, Banking Quest has been envisioned by senior level bankers with the sole aim of developing next generation bankers. We have been achieving this objective through the medium of our illustrative website, analytical blogs, trainings, workshops, webinars, articles written leading financial dailies, and also through our YouTube channel. I am happy to announce that so far we have trained more than 5,000 bankers. Friends, during the last 6 months, during this pandemic period, we have given a number of online training programs. To illustrate a few, we have conducted pre-promotional training to officers of State Bank of India, Union Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Indian Bank, Bank of India, and various private banks, regional rural banks, payments banks, small finance banks, and cooperative banks. We have also conducted workshops for Bank of Maharashtra. Recently, we have concluded our foreign exchange training program with interbank participation, and presently our credit management training program with interbank participation is going on. Friends, we have been able to achieve this milestone due to the hard work and dedication of our core team. To introduce you with our core team, our mentor, Professor Rajiv Kishore Dubey, former chairman cum managing director of Canara Bank. And we have with us Mr. Hargovind Sachdev, former general manager, State Bank of India, and head of Central European Credit Desk of SBI, Frankfurt, Germany. Mr. Sanjay Akhori, former general manager, State Bank of India. Mr. Rajesh Mahajan, former general manager, Bank of Baroda. Mr. Vaman Gokhale, former deputy general manager, Central Bank of India. Ma'am Surendrajit Kaur, former assistant general manager and faculty, State Bank of India. Mr. Alok Kulshestra, former executive, Punjab National Bank, and myself, Tilak Gulati, former principal, staff training college, UCO Bank. Presently, I am the chief executive of Banking Quest. Friends, recently, now that we are going to start a program on risk management in banks and NBFCs. This program will be in 3 levels. Level 1 will be for beginners. From this program, level 1 program, the participants will be able to understand the business of banking products, its operations and risk associated with them, organizational structure, building basic understanding of main risk, their monitoring, mitigation, and other related aspects. In level 2, we will be having detailed study of credit risk in working capital, project finance, infrastructure projects, and its monitoring, market risk and its measurement, monitoring and mitigation, liquidity risk, interest rate risk, operational risk, including IT and cybersecurity risk, calculation of capital adequacy, and other regulatory requirements. In level 3, we will be giving knowledge about the statistical tools required in risk management modeling, credit risk models, market risk models, ALM calculation, ICAAP document preparation, risk-based pricing, stress testing, and risk-based supervision. Friends, in this risk management training program, we are going to start level 1 of this training program from 17th of June. Friends, in this level 1 training program will be conducted in 10 sessions. So first session we will start from 17th of June, and there we will be deliberating upon banking business operations and risk associated with us. On 20th June, we shall be discussing 3 levels of defense and organizational structure. Then third session will be credit risk identification and measurement. Then credit risk monitoring and mitigation, market risk identification and measurement models, liquidity risk and interest rate risk, operational risk, causes and control. Our 8th session will be Basel Accord, Basel 1 and Basel 2, and then key blocks in Basel 3 Accord. And our last session, session 10, we shall be deliberating upon recent frauds in large corporate accounts. Friends, our level 1 program will start from 17th June and will conclude on 18th of July. Friends, the basic objective of this program is to groom the participants to understand the overall risk management framework in banks and financial institutions, get acquainted with various types of risk associated with the banking and bank financial assets, credit risk and its identification, measurement, monitoring, and mitigation, knowledge of market risk, liquidity risk, and interest rate risk, function of various risk management committees, particularly ELCO, Basel regulation in banking system, and importance of capital adequacy. Friends, this risk management training program has been designed, structured, and will be directed by Mr. Rajesh Mahajan, former General Manager, Bank of Baroda. During his tenure in Bank of Baroda, Mr. Rajesh Mahajan was heading the risk management department of the bank. And post-retirement also, Mr. Rajesh Mahajan has been associated with NIBM as assistant professor, with Amity University as professor, and a number of other training institutions providing training to the bankers and officials working in the finance sector. So friends, for this entire 10 session of level 1 program, our program fee is only 2,000 rupees for all the 10 sessions. Ever since we announced this level 1 training program 3 days before, we are getting overwhelming response. So anybody wants to join, please, you can join by filling up online registration form, or you can go to our website bankingquest.com. Friends, the special feature of our all online training programs is that besides conducting live session, we also share recording of the session with the participants in case the participant missed the program due to his personal or official engagement or due to some network problem. So we share the recording with the participants for a period of 3 days. We give write-up on the session, and this write-up is uploaded on our website bankingquest.com. And during this session, we give through the WhatsApp short quizzes to the participants. And periodically, we also give online test paper. At the end, we issue certificate of participation to the participants. So friends, anyone, your friends, colleagues, or relatives want to join our risk management training program, this is best training program in the banking industry today. So friends, today our topic of discussion in this webinar is demystifying fintech. We have with us Mr. Samir Baviskar, who has got wide exposure in public sector banks as well as private sector. Mr. Samir Baviskar is the former senior executive of ABN AMRO Bank, ICICI Bank, DCB Bank, and GE Capital. So, friend, I request Mr. Samir Baviskar to kindly start deliberations on demystifying fintech. Over to you, Mr. Samir.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Samir Baviskar, and thank you so much, Shri Tilak Gulati ji, for introducing me. Dear participants, I would like to take this opportunity of thanking Banking Quest for giving me this opportunity to conduct the webinar on demystifying fintech. On a personal note, I would also request, and I'm sure you all are taking care of your respective health in these uncertain times. Please get yourself vaccinated. If you got it done once, please get it done the second time as well. We all know the term fintech has become almost synonymous with banking, with only a blurred line, if I may say so. The objective is typically so that when you visit a bank for a particular work which you thought was necessarily manual, you are now prompted by the same friendly banker sitting across, asking you to use your internet banking or the banking app which is given. And that is the time when you actually freeze in your shoes, not knowing what to do. The objective of this is to share a bit of history of fintech, right? While it's a directive from our respective seniors through internal circulars for us to ensure that technology is being given more priority, it is absolutely becoming a necessity these days for us frontline bankers to understand why everybody is driving the agenda of fintech. My efforts during this particular presentation is to ensure that I try to make it as simple as possible for beginning. And then as we move ahead, we will get into the more technicalities if I am allowed by Sri Gulati ji. We need to understand why fintech is getting the kind of importance, what it is at this point in time. I will share you the various decades, how business has grown because of fintech. We will also look at, stepping up with the world-class banking norms. As you all must have identified, fintech is nothing but an abbreviation of the word financial technology, the first three alphabets and the first four alphabets of the word technology. If I have done my research very well, money transfer dates back to 1880. I'm sure everybody have grown up during the era of money order. Typically, so used to happen is what I recall, accompanying my mother to the nearest post office, where we carried hard cash, reached that particular post office, filled in the application form, gave the hard cash to the postmaster over there, along with our post office passbook. That was the front end. That is typically the fintech terminology. What is the front end and what is the back end? So this is, in short, the the front end aspect. What happened at the back end was typically the postmaster took your cash, he took the filled in application form, and you had to leave, right? So what work happened from his side is he either made a trunk call, or he actually sent a telegram across to the post office which was nearest to my village. If it was within the timing of the post office, the postman actually went on his cycle or he walked around and he got the cash delivered. This particular thing must have taken a couple of days, which, if you fast forward to 1960s, that is the time when IBM came up with their machines to read MICR strips. I'm sure of late MICR is also getting out of circulation or out of technology. But until then, it was non-MICR checks. As you would have guessed, the process from the time the railroads came in the United States, from the time the telecommunications started building up, technology came in, and we had computers in 1960s, we realized that the entire process was highly mechanical, leading to increased delay and errors. In banking parlance, allow me to say that a lot of audit queries were there. I have gone through number of audits, and we really had a sweating time to ensure the auditors were satisfied. The computer history, as I shared with you, in 1961, IBM came with that 1210 reader sorter MICR check processing, which led to banking automation. I would like to take you through this particular small video clip, which during my research for this particular webinar, I thought is very pertinent. It will take you to the time of history, making you feel a bit nostalgic, but I'm sure it's going to be an interesting video.
On the river. When the railroad came chugging along, the Wilsons, the Smiths, the McGillicuddies, and Millers hopped off the train and started building homes and families. What they actually built was a village, complete with a one-window bank. About that time, in the shed back of their father's blacksmith shop, the Miller boys started building Gidgets. The Gidgets worked. Worked? I'll say they did. Thomas Edison and Henry Ford couldn't invent a better Gidget, so they put ours in all their machines. So we had to have a factory. Oh yes, the bank, the financed the factory as well as practically everything else that ever happened here in the valley. Well, the Miller boys, cousins, and the Kellys, Kroskys, and friends came to work in the factory. Their families grew and prospered. Suddenly, our valley was a city. And the traffic in the bank grew. Paperwork piled up so fast, our bank, figuratively speaking, seemed to bulge. So we opened a branch out in a suburb. Then what do you suppose happened? Our suburb had a suburb. Today, our many-windowed bank has many problems. Because as volume goes up, accuracy tends to go down. Yet, costs rise with volume. Our bank executives want more information, and they want it faster. They need to know the availability of funds every day. They've got to have significant balance changes brought to their attention immediately. They must know which accounts are profitable and which accounts are unprofitable. In this 7th decade of the 20th century, when we can communicate information to and from satellites in space, it must be possible to get information from the bookkeeping department to the executives fast enough for the bank to provide a reasonable profit to its stockholders. It is not only possible, it is practical. Of course, you know about the machine language adopted by the American Bankers Association. Standard, uniform, magnetic characters that make possible the first industry-wide electronic communications language. It's a common language that can be read by both men and machines. With this language, the banking community takes a giant stride into the future. Banks can communicate with electronic speed. They can step ahead of their city's growth. They can have special reports, facts, figures, and statistics if they choose a fully automated system. Banking, like all American business, is a competitive business. The right system puts you in a better competitive position with better, more complete services for your customers and more efficient methods in your bank. Choosing the right system isn't just a matter of choosing devices. No, an automated system is a system of integrated devices and ideas and services.
So having seen this particular video, I'm sure a number of us has felt a bit nostalgic and also realized that the machines, the computers, so to say, were no more a laptop or a handheld device. It was as large as any room. Moving on, we realized with reference to India that it was only as early as or as late as 1980s when the need for computerized management information system and the bookkeeping was felt. Please bear in mind, we started with 1880 and we are now in the era of 1980 with reference to Indian context. The need for computerization was felt in the year 1980, and that was a time when the Reserve Bank of India, under the leadership of Dr. C. Rangarajan, ensured that computerization is the only thing to, for the growth. The objective was to ensure that the government took care of the Indian banking sector because it was opening up for the multinational banks and the private sector banks. As we moved out, and as you have seen in the previous slides and the video, necessary repetitive nature of basic banking transactions was the reason as to why computerization came into being. I myself have done ledger writings. The ledger writings were as big as the entire desk during those times. Settlements, batch management, passbook writing were the things which actually took so much of time and efforts from our fellow bankers that it was really exhausting by the end of the day. Dear friends, I have myself experienced in my very last assignment. 4 years back, we brought in passbook printing machines. You had those small desktop passbook printing machines. For that, one had to ensure that there was a man sitting there to manning that, and then you had a queue for that. 4 years back, it is really surprising that we are in the 21st century, that 4 years back, our bank procured 6 feet tall passbook printing machines. The passbook printing machines, ensured while there was no manpower needed, but there was a real estate space which had to be dedicated. A 6 feet tall machine standing in the middle of the branch or at the corner of the branch really occupied that place. It doesn't stop there. It was self-talking to itself also. It was required to guide. So when Samir Bhaviskar walks into that, wanting to get his passbook updated, the machine said, "Welcome, Mr. Samir Bhaviskar. How are you today?" And it went on. So you had so many people talking, and on top of that, you had another machine which was talking. Some of the time, some of the branch managers were very dynamic. They ensured that they installed that passbook printing machine in the ATM room. But then, as you very rightly know, that the real estate spaces in metros and non-metros, tier 2, tier 3 cities is very costly. So wherever we could accommodate, we did that. The 2008 financial crisis also was the reason why fintech came into the forefront. While the financial crisis of 2008 was largely towards subprime lending, but the fact of the matter remains, the backend was the one which actually created the required thing. This is an interesting topic, but probably I will leave it for another day. 2016 demonetization, everybody is aware of what all the turmoil went through. We all bankers were working, unlimited hours. We had a lot of challenges, lesser said the better, but we came out successfully out of it. Loss of trust. There is a study which is conducted, and this is a very interesting point which I came while I was doing my research for this webinar. CCP Research Foundation showed that 16 global banks incurred $306 billion in conduct-related costs. I will not want to dwell in this because we are all bankers. We've been there, we've done that, we've experienced. But the point of this particular slide is loss of public trust. In the very recent past, you had very respected, brands of banks who have gone through this particular era. And that is the reason also why fintech actually has come to the forefront. Now, looking at it from the customer's point of view, we have these millennials and Generation Z customers. They're absolutely technology savvy. They are the global citizens. They have increased, users globally. Penetration of 5G technology and cellular phone is absolutely, taking over. It is allowed me to be a bit, on the lighter note. They say bankers are boring, but I'm sure none of us believe that. It is just a matter that the child has to be born with a mobile phone these days. Talking about wearable devices, which I will cover in the future slides. You had the JAM scheme from the government of Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile promotion with reference to Indian context. As per the statistics which I have come to know, almost 89% of Indian households are now connected over mobile. The population of India is 1.3 billion. So 1.3 billion Indians and 87% or 90% of the households in India being connected with mobile is also one of the biggest reasons as to why fintech has come into the forefront. Security aspects. Today, when I'm traveling, I don't need to carry thousands of rupees. Right, I just load it onto my Google Pay or my Paytm wallet, and I set on my trip. So secured. From the bank's point of view, secured transactions. Isn't that a very interesting thing? One click of the button and you have those reports coming out to you. Reduced transactional costs. I'm sure we are, such senior bankers, we know what transaction costs are. But to give you a flavor, I'll be covering the transaction cost of a customer walking into the branch and what is the transaction costs, when done through online. Increase revenues and profits. As what we've seen, technology has moved. We saw the computers in 1960s, what IBM has brought in. And today we see, wearable devices which are becoming the need of the hour, right? Increased revenues and profits led to quicker turnaround time for processing every transaction. Now, what did quicker turnaround time mean? It meant we could reach to more number of customers. Isn't that amazing? What did further it mean when manual work has been taken away? We actually had cross-selling opportunities, and that is how the advent of insurance selling into the banking sector came in. We were moved away from the basics of banking, and we actually stepped into selling insurance. I have my thoughts on that, but I'll keep it for some other day. To give you an understanding of what the population is, we are talking about the highlighted areas over here, the Generation Z, that is youngest and the most technically, ethnically diverse and largest generation, comprising 27% of the world's population. Dear fellow colleagues, Generation Z is called the population which is born after 1997 to 2012. They are aged between 24 years and 29. 27% of the world's population is Generation Z. Add to that the millennials who are known as Generation Y, born between 1981 and 1996, typically aged between 40 years to 25. I'm sure a number of participants over here would definitely be following in the Generation Y and Generation Z. So imagine the kind of population. As per the statistics, I'm given to understand the population of the globe. The world population is 7.5 or 7.8 billion. You do the math and you see the opportunity. Again, to take it a bit lighter, on a lighter note, just presenting this slide, an interesting slide, which will help each one of us understand which generation we fall in. I definitely am from Generation X, not retired. I will leave it to your guess whether I am from 1965 or 1980. So these are the kind of opportunities technology is bringing on. I would further, bring on to a very interesting slide over here. I've got the statistics, the top 20 ranked countries, which shows the smartphone users against the total population of India, 1.3 billion smartphone users in India. These are activated smartphone users, 345.9 million users. You add that figure to China's 851 smartphone users, the total of that is almost 1,200 million, and you add up to the rest of the 18 smartphone users, my God, we are the next banking hub in Asia. That is the potential and the reason as to why financial technology has actually come into the forefront. It was traditionally realized, and I'm sure you all will also subscribe and agree to me, that banks provided, or rather I'm a banker too, we provided security to the customer to store his money and his valuable, right? Keep deposits, security deposits, and the other deposits are to a level insured, but to a level of 5 lakh rupees. What was technology doing about it? Technology said that we will also do the same thing, right? How do we do that? We have digital wallets. So the part of this banking thing was moved away. Investment in gold. People say that you still know about ETFs. I myself have done ETFs under the name of my children. The most secured way, rather than giving money every month to my wife to go and buy 5 grams, 10 grams of gold. I can't afford it anymore these days. But then, yes, the point which I'm trying to make over here is that the technology industry, the technology sector, allow me to say the techies, that's a better word, said that why do you need to go to this particular jeweler every month? What if you get robbed in the way? What if the gold which is given is not proper, etc., etc.? The latest, I call it the new kid in the block. The new kid in the block is your digital currency. You have Bitcoins, Ethereums, you have Dogecoins. Well, that is another controversial topic, and I would love to get into some kind of intellectual discussion on things. Just a small tip over here. Dogecoin is being launched by Mr. Elon Musk. I'm sure you all know about him. One tweet, and that currency fluctuates so high that 1 second I'm a multi-millionaire, the other second I'm a pauper. Very well, but that was an interesting trivia I thought I would leaving with you. Peer-to-peer lending, as respected Shri Sachdeva sir was saying, that customers are not actually required to go to the bank. Interesting how it is. I know of one startup in Gujarat where that particular person, he he takes deposits from individuals like you and me to as small as 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees, and then he further lends it to micro, small, medium, customers, and we get our returns, and our returns are higher than the bank deposit rates, dear gentlemen. And that's done in Gujarat, and I think it's in Surat. Yes, if I recall, it's in Surat, and that is becoming the talk of the fintech industry. That has become a talk of peer-to-peer lending. While we have the opportunity of lending to retail, small, medium enterprises and micro, small, medium enterprises, the fintech people said, the techies said, boss, if you have to repay your loans, you might as well get it done through one of our e-wallets. You do it through ECS, etc. So those were the means as to why fintech has come into the foreplay. As I was talking about cost of transaction, imagine there was a time not very far away from today, gentlemen and ladies. We're talking about the cost for banking transaction, which was as high as 70 to 75 rupees. That is nosedived to less than 1 rupee. Isn't that an opportunity? This is what the technology world has actually brought in, and this is staring ourselves in face. Again, there's so much of research which has been gone into this thing, and I've got some more, to this. As early as the 10th of June, that is 3 days back, RBI announced that they will increase the interchange fee on ATM transactions from 15 to 17 rupees. Why? Because RBI has, made transfers through RTGS, NEFT free. POS machines are available at zero rentals. The costs are further on subsidized by the bank, so forth and so on. So if a banking transaction which costed 70 to 75 rupees have been brought down to less than 1 rupee, that is an opportunity which is being seen, and since the reason as to why financial technology is coming to the forefront. This again is a report from Reserve Bank of India, which was published in 2016, 2017, which said that, they actually counted 222,475 ATM machines. You all may be aware of this fact because some of you all are still managing branches, regions, zones. ATMs have reduced in numbers. The reason, you know why? Most of the ATMs were only in tier 1 cities, most of them. Whereas the banking is now moved on to the rural sector. Tier 2, tier 3 cities. There's a classic example. There was a business case study done by Bandhan Bank. They shut down a number of branches in metros and moved towards the eastern part of the country. Why? Because they realized that their strength lies in the eastern part of the country. Point of machine sales, 25,29,141. It was in the year, if I may recall, 2016 or 2017, there was a paper put up by the Indian Banking Association, which appealed to the, to the regulator, saying that you kindly increase the charges for ATM. That is how, in my previous slide, you see that written in small writings with effect from 1st of August. It's 2 months away, 1.5 months away. The interchange fees is going to be increased from 15 to 17. Why? Because the charges in the other electronic transfers have reduced. Payment systems have been brought in. So banks need to make money somewhere. ATM is definitely a higher investment. I have that costing sheet. I'm willing to discuss and debate about it if somebody is interested to. It will indeed be my pleasure to assist anybody on any front in technology. Right. So apart from that, what do we have? We have electronic fund transfer, ECS, RTGS, check truncation system. Gentlemen and ladies, check truncation system came only in September of 2020. It is yet to complete 1 full year. We also have mobile banking, debit cards, credit cards. Debit cards, as the figures which I came, 840 million debit cards are in existence, active. We are expecting that to also go up. We also have options of mobile wallets, which so many of us use. Electronically, money can be stored and transferred as well. Further on, Reserve Bank of India said that in the years of 2014 and 2015, from 105 billion Indian rupees in 2014 prepaid payment instrument transactions and value terms increased from 105 to 182 billion Indian rupees. It moved on further to 277 billion to 532 billion. This would only have been possible because of prepaid payment instruments. That would mean cards, which would mean gift cards, foreign travel cards, corporate credit cards, etc. Imagine the volume. I actually, pardon me, I have actually not mentioned the currency in circulation, which was X. I have written somewhere, but please pardon me. I would probably have it sent across if you are interested. The actual currency which is in circulation. Nevertheless, moving on. I personally feel, these are my personal opinions, but at some point in time, you will realize probably during the course of the day or the week, lack of vision of the senior management was one of the reasons, one of the many reasons I personally feel. I may be wrong, please pardon me, with due respect to all the senior bankers in this August audience. Decision-making delays, not wanting to pivot, too much dependency on old software leading to cyber security issues. We always made a point that we are a very nimble organization. We are a very small organization. We've got less number of manpower. We can change on our heels so quickly. But decision-making delays. I always keep telling my colleagues and even my children that not taking a decision is also a decision. Not taking a decision is also a decision. So why didn't we pivot? Product fit. We all talk about peer-to-peer lending. I myself have done underwriting for almost half of my professional career. In 2013, I myself designed a credit approval memo, which I tabled to my management. And from 2013 to now, it is yet to be implemented. Too much of dependency on MS Office. I have known and I have worked in organizations where every data is made available on an Excel. I don't want to say much about it because that's a living nightmare. Gartner report says 70% of traditional financial institutions or banks will face challenges if digitalization is not made a priority. And my appeal to all the young fellow banker friends, colleagues of mine, is please take small fintech courses which will help you to scale yourself, which will help you to increase your knowledge, because what we are presently doing is definitely going out of fashion. I'm using the word fashion because it has actually become fashionable to wear an Apple Watch, see your balances, see the weather, do geo-tagging, travel to a particular distance, order your food, etc. Largely, banks have been working on the fundamental concept and fundamental pillars of branches. Branches definitely a high cost of operations. I manage an area of, I manage a region with 93 branches. The minimum headcount we had in a particular branch was 8. Depending on the size, obviously, if it was an industrial size branch, the number of people were high. But even if it is to be averaged, the average cost, average number of people to a particular manning a branch was 6, right? So high cost of operations. What we needed to do in that, it was only a operational, efficiency to be improved. We thought that distribution was only dependent on branches, but today you have digital services which are offered. The branches are now being reduced. A few weeks back, I was in a chat with Mr. Who was the current general AGM in Reserve Bank of India. He said that, Samir, you will be surprised at the rate of branches being shut in Europe and Britain. We are experiencing that, and add to that this the current economic scenario where over the last 15 months, we were thankful to the landlords who actually rolled back the the rent. I'm sure some of us were involved in renegotiating of the rents. Otherwise, with technologies coming in, right, there is absolutely no need for having a branch. Allow me to say that with due respect. Because I remember myself until DBS Bank, I'm sure everybody knows about DBS Bank, until DBS Bank took over Lakshmi Vilas Bank. I'm sure you also know which Lakshmi Vilas Bank I'm talking about. DBS was an absolute digital entity. DBS was an absolute digital entity. They never had a branch. They only had ATMs, they only had kiosks in malls, etc. Until they brought in, the Reserve Bank of India brought in a paper on which it was decided that Lakshmi Vilas Bank is now going to be taken over or amalgamated with DBS. But that is a classic example. Delay in innovation. We had so many circulars to read until we understood the circular, right? We had a couple of more on that. Technology is saying that, we have this API, you just plug and play, and within 3 days, we can actually start a digital lending program for that matter. I know of, I have been a part of this particular journey where Canara Bank is using a digital lending platform, which was offered by us. The company is called What's Loan. I'm a consultant to that. And within 10 days, we actually got this thing running. At this point in time, dear friends, that platform is servicing 100 crores worth of retail disbursement daily with a user experience of close to 1,300 customers coming on board. And this all took just about 10 days on the top to get that particular thing done for Canara Bank. I was discussing the same thing with Sri Gulati ji just a couple of days back. This is a small element of graphical representation of how banking came into existence. You remember 1880 year? It took 100 years from 1880 to 1980 for computerization and banking actually getting onto the fast track. But every year, every 10 years from 1980, right, you see the leaps as how banking has been moving. In 1980, we had MICR, we talked about that. In 1990, we had ATMs, electronic fund transfer, branch connectivity, computerization. In the year 2000, we had IMPS, RTGS, NEFT, etc. In 2010, 2020, as I told you, September 2020, we had check truncation system. So this is only going to go up. And it is up to us. It is up to our responsibility. It is our responsibility to keep the customer in the center and design these technologies around this. If I have to read between the lines from my research of so many weeks, FinTech has kept the customer in point. They have broken down things into smaller aspects, which I will show it to you in the next coming slide. There it is. On the left of my screen, you have paper-based banking where I had pay orders, demand draft checks. What did technology do? Technology brought it to paperless, further divided into silos. In electronic, you had an option. In card-based, you have an option. And if you want to do larger value, sir, we have RTGS. Sir, ladies, gentlemen, we have check truncation system. So the entire process, which was mechanical, which led to errors, which led to fraud, were now being given an option in terms of, sir, if you want to transfer lesser than 5,000, lesser than 1,000, or as low as 10 rupees, you can do IMPS. Want to do something more, we can do through NEFT. You want to do a higher thing? Most welcome, sir. So they actually divided the entire process and they offered it on the platter. Bheem and UPI, United Payment Interface, and Bharat Interface came into place. The data which I have culled through my research is as latest as February 21. UPI recorded 2.3 billion digital payment transactions. 2.3 billion digital payment transactions. Our population is 1.3 billion Indians. The worth of the transaction was 4 trillion Indian rupees. And look at the ones who are the beneficiaries. Out of the 2.3 billion, Walmart payment subsidiary, PhonePe for everybody's academic knowledge and information, ladies and gentlemen. Walmart has taken over PhonePe, right? They had a share of 42.5%. Does PhonePe have a branch? No. Where do I go if I have a concern? Google Pay. I'm paying my maid servants and going and paying for milk through Google Pay. If I have an issue, do I have a Google Pay branch? No. Google Pay had 36% of it, the share. The third biggest player was Paytm. Credit goes to this particular gentleman of Paytm, which is actually having a share of 15%. So the point over here is that UPI uses mobile interface by which customers can pay between virtual accounts virtually without mentioning, the 15-digit CBS bank account. I don't remember my, 15 digits. I only know the last 3 or 4, and I request, the banking colleague. But of late, I've stopped going to the bank. I don't remember when did I go to the branch last. My checkbook, which I was given when I opened the account 10 years back in HDFC, I probably may have used a couple of checks. Again, restricting to give cancel check because I had to give ECS to either pay my electricity bill or to pay my insurance premium. But I don't. Who does? I don't know. This is the most latest thing today morning when we connected up to say hello. This just came into my mailbox. How do Indians use digital payments? This gives you a fair understanding of how technology is going to be further on. How should I say it? Further on, getting more dynamic, right? So you had for convenience. We use money for convenience. Imagine if this particular thought occurred to us so many years back. That if I have to offer convenience, what I need to do, go back to the particular drawing board, right? And then design a strategy where customer is the king, customer is the epicenter, and then you design that. We would have already been a $5 trillion economy. Shopping, bill payments constituted 59% of the total reason as to why digital payments. And then you could read through that. Cards are the most preferred medium. There are people, I was in a discussion with ZagglePay, if you may have heard about it. It's one of the largest digital platform offering a lot of opportunities in digital payment, in managing billing, trade finance, etc. So they are coming out with prepaid cards. Debit cards is next one thing. And if you can see this logic, if you connect this thing to one of my slides over there, where the Reserve Bank of India, to protecting the banker's interest, this is my personal feeling, has increased that charges from 15 to 17 rupees. But customers don't pay enough attention to the security aspect. That is going to be the most critical aspect, which I'll just brush upon as we move on, the security aspect. There you are, India, the largest democratic country in the world. Proud to be an Indian. Top 10 countries ranked by real-time payment. And that data is as old as 2020. That's the most latest one. 25,478 million transactions. So if you add the kind of transaction which China and South Korea does, those are the transactions which actually India does. Indeed, India is great. Remittances. Some of the participants may be foreign exchange, departmental heads working in foreign exchange department. We all should be happy and proud of the fact that over this period of time, and this data is as old as 2018, is not very old, we had 78.6 billion US dollars in total remittances in the year 2020. Yes, we all know foreign institutional investors are seeing India as the growth horizon. Fixed deposit rates are still better. We have a lot of NRIs who are looking at India as a market. So that is one of the reasons. And how do you transfer money? You transfer money to digital payments. The other day I was attending a seminar again of Banking Quest. Mrs. Satinder, am I right, Gulati ji? Mrs. Satinder, she was heading.
Surendra Kaur, ma'am Surendra.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry for the wrong, pronunciation. But I remember she made a point where she said that now everything is digitally done. You really don't have to, run behind documents and all. Pardon me if I have not, if I have incorrectly quoted her. But then yes, technology was also a larger part of her point of reference in remittances. This is the user case, and I told Sri Tilak Gulati ji that I will try to bring in a user case. So just brushing it lightly, in 1998 PayPal was launched. It was launched by again Mr. Elon Musk. Elon Musk is famous, a multi-billionaire, top 10, top 100, Fortune 500, richest person in the world. He plans to send people to Mars, and he's more famously known for his Tesla cars. So in 1998, that is the time when we started actually computerizing our banking system. He brought in this particular wallet called PayPal. So the objective of this was to bring in convenience. Please remember, the year is 1998. That particular thing is, you have a debit card, you have a bank account, or you have a PayPal, wallet. You could transfer the money from this onwards to the people, or to buy anything from your online store, or to buy something from eBay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's an opportunity which eBay, you see there in your screen, which saw and said that why don't we do something dynamic? Why don't we disrupt this particular payment system? And guess what they did? They bought PayPal from Mr. Elon Musk. That is the time when Elon Musk also was in news, and he's still in news in 1998. So eBay is an online departmental store where you can use PayPal as your wallet. You can buy, you can sell, and you can do dozens of other things. Even today, PayPal happens to be the most profitable fintech or e-wallet provider. There you are. You could manage to get a list of most profitable companies. You have 3 technology companies. All 3 of them are in banking. And you have 3 banks: ICBC of China, JP Morgan Chase, and China Construction Bank. Alphabet, Google's parent company, I'm sure you all are aware. All these technology companies are ranking in the top 8. Apple has got its Apple Pay. Microsoft also has got some, mode of transferring money. It supports, at least because I myself have worked on some software called MS Azure and MS Access, on which, as I told you all, I designed myself a credit approval memo in the year 2013, 7 years back, still getting implemented. Source is an authentic source from Forbes Global of 2000. So, as I was trying to, as I very, very briefly explained the front end and the back end, technology necessarily being used is MS Access, MS Azure, basic apps, APIs. People have heard about it, and it's become a trend to use these jargons. So I'm giving you these things. AI stands for artificial intelligence. ML stands for machine learning. VR, virtual reality. AR, augmented reality. Geotagging, biometrics, and you name the works. The other day, I was surfing on the net, and all of a sudden, I came across cufflinks. I said, where did this come from? And then I asked my son, he's fairly technology savvy. So my son said that, Papa, have you been shopping for cufflinks, shirts, ties, waist belts? I said, yes, I was looking at it some. So the website identifies what I have been searching and throws up those options to me. How amazing it is, at the same time, how scary it is. I had no reason to see cufflinks flashing on my screen. That is VR, virtual reality. That is augmented reality. The other day, I had gone out with my wife for shopping, and I was just feeling a bit hungry. and I just tapped McDonald's, and it showed me 3 locations where I could get my next, McDonald's burger. Geotagging. I only have to have the internet on. To finally come to an end, considering that I'm already running against time, fintech is here to stay. How much so ever you don't want to do that, but it has got many career options. At a point in time when I started my banking career, everybody was very happy that Samir ko secure job mil gaya hai. But today, if Samir is not honing my skills in terms of upgrading myself to financial technology or fintech, right, I will be living under the rock. The way forward for the banking sector needs to update technology. My personal, professional, humble request is that please take advantage of these kind of webinars, these kind of seminars. At least you will be, listening to, some terminologies, some data, which will be easy for you to hold a conversation when you are in August audience, which will help you to also enrich your knowledge. Customer needs convenience and security. I remember our customers were not very technology savvy because my last assignment was with SBC Bank. I was the regional manager looking after this 93 branches in Mumbai. We had made kiosks. I had given my personal laptop to that particular branch manager, asking him to please assign a particular sub-staff or office assistant for that particular thing. And we were actually giving training to our customers how to log in, how to set your password, how to do fund transfer. We used to transfer 5 rupees, 10 rupees, make the customer convenient because we were losing customers. We are losing customers. So to understand the customer's convenience and to ensure security for him, we have to take these kind of initiatives. I'm willing to be a part or spearhead any of these initiatives if the respective banks, organizations, training institutes, colleges, schools would like to take this ahead. More secure systems will be used. You remember, I said something back, the transactions are increasing. So you all may have heard of this blockchain, right? Blockchain is the next big thing, NBT, as you may call, because that goes on to record. Those records are digitalized and you cannot erase that and you cannot change. So security is the bigger aspect. Blockchain is the next big thing to be knowledgeable about. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank you for your patience, giving me a patience listening. Thank you, Mr. Tilakji Gulati, for giving me this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to such more avenues. Participants, if you have any questions with reference to the particular presentation, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Smear. You have taken within this 45-minute deliberation. You have taken us a smooth journey from a remote village of India to the Silicon Valley of USA. Such a smooth journey. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, participants, if you have any question, kindly unmute and you.
Hello, Samir ji.
Yes, sir.
I'm Vaikar here, Prakash Vaikar.
Yes,
really very smoothly and very lucidly you have explained this fintech. We are really happy and thankful to you also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vaikar sir.
Yeah. Next, my question is, I would like to have such type of session to my directors. So,
Okay.
would you be able to do that? This, of course, taking Tilakji's permission, I am asking you.
Yes, sir. It will be my privilege to be of any assistance to you.
So, if you can share through Mr. Tilakji your contact details, so I'll be directly in touch with you.
Yes, Mr. Vaikar sir.
Sure.
Secondly, we are also thinking of putting in place LOS, that is loan originating system, and other apps also. So for that also, we would like to have some way of consultancy or something like that we can, while discussing, we can think about it.
Definitely, sir. It will be my privilege.
Yeah, Sure, Tilakji, I'll be discussing with you. I'll take his contact details from you.
Sure. Huh?
Yeah.
Or you
Mr.
can
Sameer's contact.
just now put it in the chat box. Contact detail will be, phone number will be there. Or I can put the phone number in the chat box right now. No issue.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. You can. Yeah. Any other participants? Kindly. August gathering. Anybody wants to say any question to? It is a privilege to ask Mr. Sameer.
Yes, Mr. Bhaskar, I have one statement to make. See, I realize and recognize that public sector banks particularly have lost out a lot because they were not tech savvy, or there were so many other agencies which did not want them to go forward. I can talk of Bank of India. When Mr. Vagul wanted to start computerization, all the unions were up against and so many things happened. He was one of the very forward-looking gentlemen we had as chairman.
Yes.
But I think these kind of seminars must be held, as Mr. Prakash just said, to the top management of public sector banks. The private sector banks, they do it anyways. So they don't have a problem. Here there's a problem of investment in technology, because technology doesn't come cheap, A. B, the thing is, people, even the general managers, I do not know about today, but I'm talking of our days when general managers, they just used to have a computer on the table, but they never even started it. They never even logged on to it. So maybe this seminar is needed by the top management of these public sector branches. And as you said, banking is going to stay, but bank branches may not be needed anymore.
Very true.
So I seriously feel if the public sector banks, because I still have the public sector thing running in me, although I joined a private sector bank later. Maybe that's because I joined at a very young age and I stayed there for more than 26 years. But then again, the thing has to start bottom up. So what you said rightly is correct, that, the Gen Y who might be joining the bank now, they may be pushing the thing from the bottom of the pyramid. Whereas
Yes.
you also give the impetus from the top of the pyramid to the directors, to the bank, chairman and whoever they are. I think both ways it will work out, and I think this has to be taken in that spirit, because 70% of the business is still with the public sector banks.
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
we are talking of so many banks going into privatization. I don't know if that's a good move. Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I think this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ma'am, I had the rare privilege of working with Mr. Vagul also. He was with ICICI Bank. Just before Mr. KV Kamath, you're talking about the same Mr. Vagul, right?
Yes.
That was the time when Mr. KV Kamath was coming in, and then we had a very big ceremony of giving Mr. Vagul a farewell in ICICI Bank, in those fancy towers, in BKC. So I can feel you, ma'am, and the August audience over here. My biggest concern is that we are losing on CASA, low cost of funds, which is going to technology.
Yes.
I myself have 5,000 rupees in my Paytm account. We are, shouting on top of shouting from top of the roof, saying that Casa badao, account kholo, zero balance kholo, ye free do, wo free do. And because of technology, all your Casa is moving on to, these payment wallets. You have banking tie-ups with your insurance companies. They are collaborating with us. It's all going out. I'm very passionate about the business, so please pardon my
Yeah, sure. So the one more concern that you mentioned, as I also use Google Pay extensively. Of course, I've not tried this Phone Pay and any of that. I somehow feel okay with Google Pay. What is it that we should do if there is some mishap somewhere? I just don't know. So far, things have been going on well, but as you rightly said, if something goes wrong, I don't know who to talk to.
Madam, these technologies, they work very well with their back office. They have 24/7 helpline. At the best, you will have to wait for overnighting. But when you scroll up at the bottom end, you have these options. Can I help, or can we help you? So when you just press that, it will take you that particular link, and you just type in the chat box like what we have over here on this webinar, and they get back to you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Doshi.
Sir, would you recommend some short-term courses on fintech? Are there any short-term courses?
Yeah, Umesh, we are coming for a course on Banking Quest, and Mr. Samir Vaviskar will be the director of that program. It has already been decided. We are coming up.
Okay, sir.
Hmm?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Taking the point of Mr. Baviskar regarding CASA going to fintech,
Yes, sir.
there is another direction to this. The fintech companies have no reserve requirements. As a banker, I have to maintain SLR, CRR, keep lot of reserves. I cannot lend 100 rupees which I get just for the security of the investors. But these fintech companies, the entire wallet is at their whims and fancies. They don't have any requirement, any compliances to maintain any reserves against that. So this is a genuine worry which Samir has put forth. And it's time that bankers should shout to create some sort of reserves for these wallet companies also. Or otherwise, this will be grossly misused without taking a bank license. These
Very true.
fintech companies will become richer overnight. Even today, Paytm share in grey market is quoting at rupees 22,000,
There you
whereas
are.
SBI share has not touched 460 rupees.
Dekho.
And the smartest bank around, like HDFC share is hardly 3,000. So just imagine the value of this CASA, which has given sort of valuation to the fintech company rather than to bank, which is struggling for ages.
Very rightly said, sir. Very, very valid point, sir. Very valid point. Because I am, it will bring nightmares to us. Sir. Tomorrow, if one of these wallets goes belly up, where are we going to look for them? As what ma'am Hemlata Mohan said, if I have a problem, where do I go? Where do we look for these people? Where do we look for these people if they go belly up, if they decide to just poof? Google Pay, they don't have an office. Uber, they don't have an office. But these days, the children just book that app on that thing and Uber aa jati hai. AC to AC, non-AC to non-AC. Where do we go for customers?
Not only they don't have an office in India, the entire data is stored in US
Very
or
true.
in UK. Even the back office is not here. So
So data
nothing can be
security.
disseminated.
Sir, data security. Nobody is talking about data security in banking, sir. This TransUnion, CIBIL, your bureaus and all these things, they have all the data of what Samir Vaviskar ने कब लोन लिया है, गाड़ी कौन सी खरीदी है, कौन सा टू व्हीलर घूमता है, कौन से कार्ड है. I'm exposed.
Entire profiling is there. Entire profiling. I remember.
Customer is why
Yeah.
RBI is allowed to Google Pay to deduct our account. Customer is asking why RBI allowed to deduct our account through Google Pay or Phone Pay. They are asking. If some insurance company they pay through with the help of Google Pay, the transaction was not successful, so they go for court and they fight each other and come for branch for a complaint.
Correct.
And finally they ask why you allow such transactions. They asked. At the time we are unable to give the answers to the customers.
Yes, we don't. You're very rightly said, Mr. Vinod.
There has to be regulation on all these fintech companies. Otherwise, our survival will be at stake, because the cream of the business, which was remittances, has gone away. Being the money spinner, these people will become richer by leaps and bounds and will threaten the existence of banks.
Correct.
So I think as Mr. Sachdeva says, and also you have been mentioning, I think there has to be a regulator for this. I think we should moot that. Some regulation, because it's not just the money part of it. When, even for a small bank, you're supposed to have capital and all those capital adequacy ratios and all that. Why not for these people? After all, this is also public money. How are they not even looking at any capital requirement? And anybody can have. Earlier there was a limit of only 1 lakh up to this phone pay and all that. Now that 1 lakh is also gone, so you can park your entire 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs in that, and you're none the wiser for that.
Exactly, Madam Hemlata. You will not believe that Paytm today is in a loss of 1,987 crores. It has not got a balance sheet which is in profit so far. But you see its share value, I told you, just because it has got this CASA and the fintech technology of remitting money within a few seconds across world. So see the competition which is building up, and one day, maybe after another 50 years, probably banks will be museums if such things continue.
Correct.
One point can I mention?
Sure,
Yeah,
sir.
yes, Balaji.
I have my doubts that as far as the some reserve amount is to be kept by these mobile wallets, they are required to take lessons before issuing any mobile wallet from the RBI. Although on the RBI side it is not clear, but they are having some obligation for keeping the reserve in the government securities or in other approved securities of the bank. I think on this thing we should check first, and on the public platform then we make any statement. And as far as all these wallets are concerned, they are also keeping their account with the banks only, because the money is transferred to them with the bank within a bank. For example, in the case of the Paytm, I think they are having a bank they are banking with the IndusInd Bank, right? All this is not that 100% money they are free to invest anywhere. Part of that they are required to keep as a reserve also. What is that amount? I need to check, and I request all of you, in case in any of our next such webinar, in case we can deliberate upon, or otherwise I will be finding out from some, since Mr. Samir, you are saying that you are having some close liaising with the RBI. From there we can find out. So as far as the business model is concerned, as we are talking about the losses and all, because 100% money they cannot use, and whatever the float they are having with them, it is not that the 100% they can go and invest in the market as per their whims and wings.
Yes, Mr. Mahajan, you raised a very good point. Yesterday's newspapers quote the chairman come managing director of Paytm that the tag of NBFC should be removed from them. You know very well that none of the NBFCs is controlled to have SLR CRR. Even the deposit accepting NBFCs do not maintain. The difference between an NBFC and a bank is that they are not required to maintain any reserves, unlike banks. Now, if Sharma is trying to play smart and compete with banks, it is very clear, because he wants the tag of NBFC to be removed so that other compliances also go away, and he makes merry with this money. I am very sure that there is absolutely no requirement at this stage for these fintech companies to maintain any SLR CRR.
No, it is not. It is within the fintech. Within the fintech, we are talking only about the payment wallets, because in the case of the fintech there is a very large scope, sir. In case of the NBFCs also, all the NBFCs, they are regulated by the RBI, but for the purpose of raising the funds, those who are not raising the deposits, hardly there are very few NBFCs which has been allowed by the RBI to raise the deposits, but for the purpose of borrowing, they are heavily regulated by the SEBI.
Sir, the difference is the cost.
So there may be a not requirement of the reserves per se by the NBFCs, but for the purpose of the borrowing, since their regulation is there by the SEBI, so and all other capital adequacy norms and all that things, that is very strictly followed by the SEBI. So in case of the banking, it is very a peculiar thing, basically because of the vulnerability in the deposit withdrawals, which is the primary duty of the banks to provide to the customers. So that is why in India, this type of the reservation is there, the CLR and SRR. But I think I will come back to you, sir. I will come back to you.
Yeah, one more point.
Yeah.
One more point here, sir. When you come back, you also tell me, as a banker, I have to pay at least 3.5% interest in savings bank account every month. But are these companies which are maintaining the wallet paying any interest? They are not paying. They do not have any reserve ratios. Now, the advantage which they are getting, Samir just told us 15% of the entire digital transaction which is running into trillions is done by Paytm and remaining by the two American companies who are so big in India. All that money they are simply enjoying free of cost through wallets. They are not having any reserves, no compliance of paying any interest. Of course, they are regulated. They have to disclose so many things, but cost-wise, banks are losing. That is where my concern is.
Sir, you are very right. One aspect we are forgetting is that about the operational cost which these companies are incurring and which the banks are also incurring. When we talk about the CASA also, that we should have a CASA, but at the same time, we must know the volatility and the vulnerability as far as the CASA is concerned and how heavy it is for the banks. Once they have made the investment and all of a sudden there is a demand for the money, so in order to keep that money always with them, how much that is costing. So operationally, in case if you will find technology, the money, the cost which they are paying for this technology platforms, in case if we compare all that things, so as we are agreeing on this thing that they are right now heavily in losses. More and more, unless the volumes will not be there, more and more limits will not be increased to keep the money. So there again, the business viability is in doubt. So, but all the studies, they are leading to that the banking will be a technologically driven in future. So everybody is basically relying on that. So that was the whole point as compared to the other points. I don't disagree
your point
with anything
very
which has been
rightly
asked.
taken. Your point, Mahajan sir, is very positive, and I will personally also stay in touch with you. Can you share your mobile number, Gulati ji? Can I request?
Yeah, I'll share you.
Okay. Mr. Mahajan ji, very valid point, sir. Very valid.
I think Shankar ji wanted to say something.
Yeah, I only wanted to tell actually that, innovation, convenience is there. At the same time, there is also risk. There is also the risk of, again, cyber security. There is a risk of, again, data governance, how exactly it is going to be used. All those issues are there. But what I could tell, Hemlata madam had referred about public sector banks. But let me tell you, actually, there is lot many changes now in the thinking of public sector banks also. Sadhya Saab will vouchsafe that actually SBI, that platform which we are having, is a fantastic platform. Similarly, in many public sector banks also, they are moving into fintechs, and government also is having an agenda through the EASE agenda. They are pushing the public sector bank to be more techno savvy, to facilitate such kind of platforms where actually things happen straight through. Even in the foreign exchange side, now banks are looking at opening LCs and all that straight through at the convenience of sitting in the office. Now customers can open LCs in many public sector banks. And going forward, blockchain is going to be a game changer also, where actually once a blockchain comes across, the relevance of SWIFT also may not be there possibly going forward. So things are evolving, and public sector banks are also, in fact, become more techno savvy. This is one aspect. And another thing, while the wallet issue which was raised is a very valid point Sadhya Saab has raised, but many of the fintech, they are basically connecting the merchant establishments with the customer, like Google Pay or such other APIs, where actually money is not resting with them. They are basically connecting the merchant establishments with the service providers, that's the bank. Of course, there are wallets, yes, in which case actually when the money is resting in the wallet, yes, there is a valid question which Sadhya Saab has told. So it need to be examined. And Rajesh ji also has mentioned about that aspect where regulators are issuing licenses, and I'm not very sure about that. Again, further deliberations are required that whether actually any kind of risk mitigations are being undertaken. Apart from that, nowadays actually, there are companies which are incurring losses, but their valuations are very high. The reason could be that actually now what exactly is perceived is what is the future of the company. Valuations are driven by future potential based on the customer connect which the company is having. So that could also be a reason why these valuations are possibly driven in spite of the fact that these companies are in losses. But it is very interesting, and going forward, I think that actually banks, yes, branches should be there. If I could submit, despite the fact that there are what you call digital ways of reading, Kindle and all that are there, but even then sometimes people will prefer a tactile experience of reading. Similarly, in the banks also, though all these digital technologies can emerge, like Hemlata madam was just telling, if I have an issue, whom should I contact? So we always would like to, we would like to always have a human touch, and possibly the branches may reinvent themselves. Banks may reinvent the branches in a different way. In the branches, possibly heavy computers may not be there. The staff will be moving with tablets, going to customers. There may not be big servers. Instead, there will be sharing of servers or cloud computing. That will be possibly the future course of banking. We never know, but definitely there is a big transformation that is happening. And thank you very much, Mr. Samir. It was really very interesting to hear you. And Sachdeva Saab, as always, wonderful, lot many good thoughts. And Hemlata madam, thank you, and Rajesh ji, and also very valid thought points. And thank you, Gulati Saab, for organizing this wonderful event. Thanks a lot. And please share Mr. Samir's mobile with me as well.
I've written the Samir mobile in the chat box. Already I have written in the chat box. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. One clarification. Ms. Hemlata Mohan has given that payment banks are required to invest at least 75% of their demand and deposits in SLR. Yes, payments banks are required to keep 75% of the deposits in SLR securities, but digital wallets are not required to keep that. The issue is that digital wallets are not being regulated properly. Payments banks are the extended version of digital wallets. Yeah. Rahul Joyal, you wanted to say something? Rahul Joyal?
Shankarji, sorry.
Yeah, Hemlata, yeah, please.
No, Shankarji, I just want to say State Bank has always been ahead in technology. So, I mean, we never had a problem with them. We always, followed the other public sector banks.
Madam, I can assure you that take any public sector bank. I'm telling about UCO Bank.
Today things have changed. I'm not saying
today because it's like all are into the technology.
Yes,
and
sir.
fintech is the norm nowadays, and most banks are collaborating with fintech.
It's
so
like
that
is train, sir. It's like that Bombay train. You have to stand on the platform, so everybody pushes you into the train. So willy-nilly we are going into that. But what I'm saying is, see, it's not just getting into fintech. You also have to see about data security. Now just some weeks ago, maybe a few weeks ago, Aadhaar cards, all our data was out in the open. Now, whether it is a fact or not, I don't know. Okay. Then
we have to live with that. Even SBI had an issue, if you remember.
No. So what I'm saying is, I fully take your point. No, I'm very glad, sir, that they are there. What I'm only saying is, as Mr. Samir also said, data security is important, because now today we don't need a bank. One simple mobile is enough to do everything. Tomorrow mobile will be able to open my car also. Tomorrow mobile will be able to open my door also, everything. So everything is going to sit on my mobile. Data security now, with all this mobile wallet and all, the data security is going to be the important thing. And a fellow sitting somewhere in some Zimbabwe or some fellow, he will know that I'm opening my door, I'm going to this place, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And people, vulnerable people, particularly the old age people who are considered to be a little richer than the other people because they have their investments and all that, they are considered vulnerable. They have to be careful. That's what I'm just saying, both for life and for their money. That's
true. We have seen how frauds are happening, how frauds have happened and how billions of dollars are being siphoned. We are seeing that. So yes, cybersecurity is very important. So is data governance. So is data security. As Satyava Saab has validly mentioned, many of the servers are there in the US, not even in India. So all these things are very important. While fintech is going to give convenience, it's going to give innovation, it's going to bring innovation, but at the same time, all these aspects are also very relevant, as Hemlata Madam has also mentioned.
Well, one small thing, a point which I want to share my personal experience. My parents, they are in Mumbai. So I asked my father, ki, Papa, how are you making arrangements of paying the electricity bill? So my father said, I have given direct debit. I said, Papa, but then, you don't know how much is your bill coming and you've given direct debit. Suppose if the bill is say 100 rupees, they may be deducting 110 rupees. How are you to validate that? And he's a senior citizen of 83 years of age. So that is a matter of concern, as what Mrs. Hemlata Mohanji said very rightly. And the Shankarji, I appreciate the fact that blockchain is the next big thing that will provide a lot of security also.
Yeah, already it is the in thing in Singapore and all that. Already now, even the MAS has started registry services on the right platform.
Yes.
In order to, so many new things are happening actually, and many of the foreign banks now are on Quota platform on blockchain.
See, in blockchain, the matter, just sharing a thought. Don't this thing. The thing is that two people have to agree to keep that data on the blockchain. So if Shankar Iyer sir has decided something, I also have to decide. But here we are so many intelligent people, and they don't come together to have a blockchain. So when I was doing underwriting, credit underwriting in ICICI Bank, we had actually hired a warehouse to keep all our collaterals.
No, you please kindly confirm. Actually, I read a news article where actually Yes Bank had rolled in Mahindra and Mahindra and provided the entire supply chain on blockchain. I'm not sure about that. There was a news article in the Mint where Mahindra and their entire supply chain is on blockchain with Yes Bank.
Yes Bank.
Yes.
Okay.
But Yes Bank, of course, it had it, but I think actually, after the whatever turmoil had happened, this news had come. The person management, it was not earlier. The person management had taken out. Thereafter, some news item was there.
I will check and I will let you know.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you all the dignitaries. It was a very
Thank you very much.
constructive debate. Thanks a lot. Highly constructive debate, and this type of debate should go on. So that's how the big changes come. And I thank Mr. Shankar Iyer, Ms. Hargovi Sachdev, Hemlata Mohan, Rajesh Mahajan, and all the dignitaries who have actively participated in this debate. And I thank Mr. Samir Bhaviskar for initiating this debate. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity,
all the participants. So time is already over. So I seek your permission to close this webinar, close the debate. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Have a good day, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.